With Wall Street expectations running ahead of reality, are markets becoming harder to impress despite blockbuster earnings? Good morning and welcome to another power-packed episode of Business Week. This week, Nvidia shares sink 5% even after blowout results, underscoring just how elevated investor expectations have become. Now, Netflix walks away from a potential deal involving Warner Brothers Discovery after Paramount's rival offer is deemed superior. And in Asia, India posts faster than expected economic growth of 7.8% in the December quarter. And here in Nigeria, the central bank cuts the benchmark interest rate to 26.5%, signaling cautious confidence as inflation shows signs of moderating. In corporate earnings, MTN Nigeria rebounds to 1.7 trillion naira profit for 2025, while proposing a 15 naira final dividend for shareholders. And later in the show, we take a closer look at how the CBN is balancing rate relief with liquidity restraint, and what that means for inflation, foreign exchange stability, and investor confidence. Now, if you missed any of the big business stories of the week, don't worry, we're here to help you catch up as always. I am Abby Owolawi. Do stay tuned. Let's take a look at how the markets performed this week. We'll begin with the week-on-week commodities performance as at Friday, the 27th of February. Well, oil prices rose by about $1 on Friday as traders remained on alert for potential supply disruptions after the United States and Iran extended nuclear talks. Now, Brent crude was up by 1.70% on a weekly basis to $72.58 a barrel, while US WTI crude was at $66.87 a barrel, up by 1.21% from last week. Now, amid new reports of explosions in multiple Iranian cities, including the capital Tehran, after Israel and US launched strikes earlier today, the US military is planning for several days of attacks. A look now at the Nigeria Stock Exchange at the end of the last weekday of trading. A total of 823.82 million shares in 63,759 deals, corresponding to a market value of 38.75 billion naira, were traded. Now, compared to Friday, February 20th, 2025, yesterday's data showed a 0.04% in volume as well as a 0.04% rise in deals. Now, the current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 123.76 trillion naira. Let's now take a look at the weekly performance across African markets. Starting in South Africa, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange closed at 128,455.7, marking a rise of 4.42% week on week from February 20th, 2026. In Ghana, we saw positive movement with the index rising on a weekly basis by 9.11% and closing at 12,830.56. In Kenya, the Nairobi Stock Exchange closed downward by 2.95%, with the index ending at 216.08. And finally, Morocco's Mazi closing at 18,140.55 there, down by 3% on a weekly basis. A look now at European markets, where the regional stock 600 rose by 0.65% on a week-on-week basis from February 20th, 2026. And the German DAX index was up there by 0.22%. We see France's CAC 40 index rising by 1.17%, while the UK's FTSE 100 rose by 1.91%, and Spain's IBEX 35 advancing by 1.22% on a weekly basis. Finally, let's take a look at Wall Street as at Friday, February 27th, 2026, as the Dow Jones Industrial Average traded 1.11%, lower than last week Friday's. The S&P 500 dropped by 0.46% on a weekly basis. We also saw the Nasdaq Composite retreating there by 0.93% week on week. Let's now take you to our top stories for the week. U.S. President Donald Trump touted his economic record during the longest State of the Union address in history on Tuesday, boasting that he had ushered in a golden age as he sought to project an aura of success at a fraught moment for his presidency. Now, hearing calls from advisors, Trump spent the first hour of his televised speech focused on the economy, saying he had curbed inflation, driven the stock market to record heights, signed sweeping tax cuts, and lowered drug prices. Let's have a look.
The Biden administration and its allies in Congress gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%. Gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon in some states under my predecessor, it was quite honestly a disaster, is now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places $1.99 a gallon. And when I visited the great state of Iowa just a few weeks ago, I even saw $1.85 a gallon for gasoline. Mortgage rates are the lowest in 4 years and falling fast, and the annual cost of a typical new mortgage is down almost $5,000 just since I took office. 1 year. And low interest rates will solve the Biden-created housing problem well, at the same time protecting the values of those people who already own a house that really feel rich for the first time in their lives. We want to protect those values. We want to keep those values up. We're going to do both. And we are going to keep it that way. The stock market has set 53 all-time record highs since the election. Think of that, 1 year. Boosting pensions, 401ks, and retirement accounts for the millions and millions of Americans. They're all gaining. Everybody's up, way up. In 4 long years, the last administration got less than $1 trillion in new investment in the United States. And when I say less, substantially less. In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion pouring in from all over the globe. Think of it, much less than $1 trillion for 4 years versus much more than $18 trillion for 1 year. What a difference a president makes. A short time ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, the hottest.
Now, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has deemed artificial intelligence firm Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security, following days of increasingly heated public conflict over the company's efforts to place guardrails on the Pentagon's use of its technology. He declared on X that effective immediately, no contractor, supplier, or partner that does business with the United States military may conduct any commercial activity with Anthropic. Now, the decision could have a wide-ranging impact given the sheer number of companies that contract with Pentagon. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said on Friday that his company has agreed to terms with the Department of Defense on the use of its artificial intelligence models shortly after President Donald Trump said the government will not work with AI rival Anthropic. Altman's statement lands at the end of a dramatic week for the AI industry, which he has found itself at the center of a political debate surrounding how its models can be used. And still on the artificial intelligence space, OpenAI announced a $110 billion funding round on Friday, a financing that has more than double the size of its last raise a year ago, which was a record for a private tech company. Amazon invested $50 billion, NVIDIA invested $30 billion, and so did SoftBank in the round. The investment boosts OpenAI to a $730 billion pre-money valuation, which marks a big jump from its $500 billion valuation in a secondary financing in October. Now, Nvidia shares dropped more than 5% on Thursday as investors' concerns around its leadership in the artificial intelligence boom dampened enthusiasm over its earnings beats. The company reported stellar quarterly results, but the numbers were not enough to assuage Wall Street amid an already fragile time for stocks. Companies across many industries ranging from trucking to software have been rattled this year by fears of AI disruption to their businesses. Now, elevated valuations and high capital expenditures have also set a high bar for these names. A look now at the business of entertainment as Netflix walks away from a deal to buy Warner Bros. Discovery studio and streaming assets after the board on Thursday deemed a revised bid by Paramount Skydance to be a superior offer. Earlier this week, Paramount raised its bid to buy the entirety of Warner Bros. Discovery to $31 per share, up from $30 per share, all cash. Now, it was the latest amendment to Paramount's multiple offers in recent months, and since moving forward with a hostile bid to buy the company. It has also now unseated a deal between Warner Bros. Discovery and Netflix to sell the legacy media studio and streaming businesses for $27.75 per share. A look now at Asia as India's economy grew at a faster than expected pace at 7.8% in the quarter ending in December. A Reuters poll of economies had pegged the October-December GDP to grow at 7.2%. Now, the latest print comes after the government overhauled the framework for calculating economic output to improve accuracy. In its previous quarter, India's GDP growth rate was at 8.2%, which has now been revised to 8.4% under the new series. And in South Africa, the economy is projected to grow by 1.6% in 2026, with the outlook steadily improving. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana said on Wednesday. Now, he made the remarks while delivering the 2026 budget speech in Cape Town, outlining the government's fiscal strategy and economic reform agenda. According to the minister, efforts to promote faster economic growth revolve around 4 pillars. Now, that's maintaining macroeconomic stability, implementing structural reforms, investing in growth, enhancing infrastructure, and building state capacity. Now, in East Africa, Kenya's annual inflation eased to 4.3% in February 2026, down from 4.4% in January, giving the Central Bank of Kenya greater room to consider additional interest rate cuts. Now, the CBK has consecutively reduced borrowing costs in 10 straight meetings since August 2024, as inflation has consistently remained below the 5% target. And the Central Bank of Nigeria reduced the monetary policy rate, the benchmark interest rate, by 50 basis points from 27% to 26.5%. According to CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso, the bank also retained the standing facilities corridor and kept the cash reserve requirements unchanged. That is, deposit money banks at 45%, merchant banks at 16%, and 75% for non-TSA public sector deposits. Now, Nigeria's economy grew by 4.07% year-on-year in real terms in the fourth quarter of 2025. This is according to the latest GDP report released on Friday. The growth rate represents an improvement from the 3.76% recorded in the corresponding period of 2024, signaling a stronger year-end performance. Now, the latest data also shows improved contributions from agriculture, industry, and oil, while the services sector retained its position as the dominant output driver. And in telecommunications, MTN Nigeria has staged a remarkable comeback, swinging to a massive 1.1 trillion naira profit after tax in 2025 after suffering a hefty 400.4 billion naira loss in the previous year. The big turnaround came thanks to steadier foreign exchange rates and explosive growth in data usage that really boosted the top line. Now, service revenue jumped 55.1% to hit 5.2 trillion naira for the full year, and in December 31st, 2025, while data revenue led the charge with a 74.5% surge, and fintech income shot up by 79.7%.